There were 3 balloons on the mailbox, 2 wine glasses in the sink, and one very familiar coat draped over a chair that didn't belong to either of us. That was the first thing I noticed. Not her perfume lingering in the air. Not the wine stain on the white rug. Not even the fact that music was still playing in the living room, though nobody was dancing. It was the coat. Black leather, expensive, masculine. I had seen it once before, 6 months ago, hanging on a chair in the background of a blurry Instagram story my wife swore was just a team lunch. I remember that day clearly, not because of the coat, but because it was our anniversary. She forgot. And now here it was again, in our house, draped over a chair like it belonged here. I didn't call out her name. I didn't storm through the hallway. I didn't rush to catch them in the act. I already knew some things. You just feel it, like the air gets too still, like the house knows it's hosting something wrong. And the worst part? There had been a party in our home without me. There were still crumbs on the counter from that overpriced bakery she only splurged on when she wanted to impress someone. The guest bathroom light was on. Someone had used our monogram towels, the ones we got as a wedding gift but never touched because they were for special occasions. I walked past everything quietly, carefully. I heard laughter, then whispering, then the kind of silence that only comes when lips are pressed together and someone's hands are where they shouldn't be. I stood outside the bedroom door, not ours, the guest room. Her scent was stronger there. Citrus and warmth and something unfamiliar. Something that didn't belong to our life. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I turned, walked out. I passed the fridge with the magnets she arranged into motivational words. I passed the wedding photo that used to make my heart ache with gratitude. I passed my own reflection in the hallway mirror, and I barely recognized the man staring back at me. By the time I reached the front door, I was shaking. Not with anger, not even sadness. It was something else. Like my body was mourning a future it hadn't caught up to yet. I closed the door gently behind me, got into my car, and drove to a 24-hour diner where the waitress didn't ask questions when I sat for 3 hours and ordered nothing but hot water. By 5:47 a.m., my phone burst. Her, "Where are you?" Her, "Are you okay?" Her, "We need to talk." By 6:12 a.m., another message came in. Her, "Please come home. I'm crying. I don't know what to do." She was in tears, but I wasn't, because tears don't fix broken timelines. And mine had just split in two. I didn't go home that morning. I sat in the car for a while longer after the diner, windows fogged from my breath, listening to a playlist she once made for me on a rainy Sunday. I don't know why I played it. Maybe to torture myself. Or maybe because I needed to hear her voice in those songs, the one I used to believe meant every word. Eventually, I drove. Nowhere important, just away. That's all I knew how to do. A gas station, a park I hadn't been to in years. A parking lot near the river where we used to eat ice cream and talk about someday, like it was guaranteed. I kept checking my phone. Not because I wanted to talk to her, just curious. Like watching a house burn down and wondering when someone will finally call the fire department. By 9 a.m., she'd sent 12 texts and 4 voicemails. One selfie of her crying, like that was supposed to prove something. I didn't reply, but she didn't stop. She kept messaging me all day. "I need to explain. Please answer. It's not what it looked like." That one made me laugh out loud. Bitter. Hard. The kind of laugh that sounds like a choke. Because what could it possibly have looked like besides exactly what it was? Around noon, she finally sent a longer message. I still remember every word. "Please don't leave me like this. I made a stupid, horrible mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was drunk. He was just being nice, and things got out of hand. I stopped it. I swear. Please come home. Let's talk. I love you." She said she stopped it, but she hadn't even noticed me standing 10 feet from the guest room door, hadn't heard the quiet shift in the air, hadn't cared enough to wonder where I was during her mistake. She was too busy letting someone else's hands rewrite our story. I didn't text back. Instead, I drove to my sister's place across town. Told her I needed to crash for a night or two. She didn't ask many questions, but I could tell she knew something was wrong. When I opened the guest room door, There were clean sheets and a small folded towel on the bed. It was more welcome than I had felt in my own house for months. That night I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how long it had been going on. Was he the only one? Was it really the first time, like she claimed? Or had there been others? Worse than that, had she ever looked at me the way she looked at him? The images kept replaying in my head. Not just what I'd seen, but what I hadn't. The way she smiled before he touched her. The way she let him lean in without flinching. She was comfortable. She was familiar with him. And that wasn't something that happens by accident. The next morning, she stopped texting. Instead, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected. Mason, the guy whose birthday it supposedly was. He sounded awkward, nervous, like he knew he was stepping on something raw. Hey, listen, I know things got weird the other night. I didn't want to get involved, but man, I thought you should know. That guy she was with, he wasn't invited. I froze. What do you mean he wasn't invited? He hesitated. He wasn't part of our group. I've seen him with her before. Once or twice, but never with anyone else. I didn't even know his name. I thought maybe he was your cousin or something. That did it. The foundation I had been balancing on cracked. So he wasn't just a coworker. He wasn't even someone from her professional circle. He was someone she brought into our life like a dirty secret. Someone no one knew but her. And that meant this wasn't a one-night drunk mistake. It was calculated, quiet, rehearsed. I hung up without saying much. I didn't have words anymore. I had a storm, and it was just beginning to pick up speed. But instead of confronting her, I started planning something else. No revenge, no shouting match, just truth. And truth, when it's full and heavy and undeniable, can crush louder than any scream. I didn't answer the door when she finally came knocking. She showed up at my sister's place around 8 p.m. the next day. Not crying, not yelling, just standing there, arms crossed like she was cold or trying to look small. Her makeup was gone, and her hair was pulled back the way she used to wear it before everything got so complicated. I watched her through the peephole for a full minute before stepping back and sitting on the edge of the guest bed like I hadn't seen anything. She knocked once more quietly, then again. She called my name. I didn't move. I could hear my heart thumping in my ears like some kind of stupid drum roll. She waited maybe 5 minutes, then slid something under the door and left. Her steps down the porch were slow, like she expected I'd stop her. But I didn't. It was a handwritten note. It said, "I know what you saw. I know how it looked, but if you let me explain, you'll understand that it wasn't real. Not like us. You were never supposed to see that. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't think I still could. But apparently I can." That last sentence made me physically nauseous. I didn't think I still could. As if hurting me was a compliment. As if my pain was proof that our marriage still meant something. The next 2 days blurred. I stayed mostly in that small room, ignoring my sister's concerned glances and pretending I had work calls to take. I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep well. I just kept going back to the last moment I saw her face before I walked out of the house. How peaceful she looked with him. Like I was the stranger. Like he was the one she'd built her life around. I started digging. Not through her phone, I didn't have access, but through my own memories. Through everything she'd told me, everything I thought I knew. I looked back at old emails, receipts, calendar events, excuses she gave when she was late. And it didn't take long to start seeing patterns. A spa day that turned into an accidental overnight stay at a friend's place. A conference in another city where her location never changed. Birthday dinners with just the girls that didn't have a single photo. It wasn't one affair. It was a slow unraveling. A rot that had spread too quietly for me to notice until I pulled the thread and saw how far it reached. The man in the coat wasn't her first. I didn't even know if he was her favorite. She had been building a second life. Maybe not fully, maybe not consciously. But she had been drifting from me like a boat cutting its anchor in the night. And I was too busy thinking we just needed a vacation. A spark. A fresh start. One night I scrolled through her social media, not her feed that was curated, filtered, safe. I looked at her tagged photos, buried deep in someone else's album from months ago. I found one. It was small, grainy, forgettable to most people. A group shot. She wasn't centered. She wasn't even facing the camera. But his hand, that same man's, was on her hip, and she was leaning into him. That photo was dated 4 months ago. For months before the party. For months before the night she said, "I messed up." It wasn't a mistake. It was a continuation. I stared at that photo for hours, saved it, cropped it, stared again. Every time I blinked, I imagined myself in that room with them, as if I could rewind time, walk into the frame, and ask, "How long have I been invisible?" And then I did something I didn't expect of myself. I printed it, an actual physical print. I took it to a drugstore kiosk, stood there like some kind of amateur detective with a shaking hand, printed that single image, slid it into a plain envelope, and wrote her name on it in pen. No message, no warning, no return address. I dropped it in the mail the next morning. Let her feel it. Let her open it without knowing what was inside. Let her heart stop when she realized I'd seen more than she thought. And then silence. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't even tell my sister. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud. This wasn't about saving the marriage. This wasn't about understanding her. It was about finally understanding me and what I deserved. The envelope must have arrived 2 days later. I didn't get a message. No explosion. No apology. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means something's moving under the surface, and you don't know what or when it'll burst. But I wasn't really waiting for a reaction. That photo wasn't a warning shot. It was a mirror. When I forced her to look into it, maybe for the first time in months, she'd see herself the way I had seen her through that hallway door. Not elegant, not successful, not desirable, just exposed. That night, I finally turned my phone back on. I hadn't touched it in 2 days. There were 37 missed calls, dozens of texts, none from unknown numbers, which was interesting. That meant he hadn't tried to reach out. Whoever he was a ghost. Intentional, quiet, maybe even dangerous in how easily he disappeared. But her messages, they were shifting. First, she was apologizing. Then she was begging. Then she got angry. "You had no right to just walk away. If you're not going to talk to me like an adult, then maybe this isn't salvageable. This is your choice too, Edwin. Don't pretend like this is all on me." That one hit me the hardest. It came through at 2:11 a.m. and sat on my lock screen for a while before I opened it. I didn't answer. What was there to say to someone who needed to distribute blame like coupons at a supermarket? You don't trip and fall into someone else's arms. You walk. You choose. And she had made that choice long before the party. I tried to distract myself by going back to work, but even there I was falling apart in slow motion. I snapped at coworkers, forgot basic tasks. My manager, a guy named Leon who always wore mismatched socks and told bad jokes, pulled me aside and said, "You don't look well, man. You want to take some days?" I almost said yes, but I needed the routine, the noise, the hum of fluorescent lights and barcode scanners. It was the only thing that drowned out her voice in my head, the one I used to miss and now couldn't escape. That same afternoon, something unexpected happened. I received a message from a woman named April. The name didn't register at first. Then I realized she worked with Karina. They've been on the same team for 2 years. We met once at a work barbecue. She was quiet, polite, the kind of person who noticed things but never said much. Her message was simple. "I know I shouldn't get involved, but I thought you deserved to know. That guy from the party, his name's Reed. He's not single." Karina knew that. So did I. But I didn't know she'd go this far. "I'm sorry. I wish I had told you earlier." I stared at the message, stunned. Not single. So he had someone, too. This wasn't just an affair. It was a web. Lies wrapped in more lies. Touching people who had no idea they were pieces on a board someone else was playing. I thanked April. She didn't reply again. Maybe she just needed to get it off her chest. Maybe she knew that silence was safer now. But now I had a name. Reed. And once I had a name, it didn't take long to find him. LinkedIn, Instagram, public Facebook. Married. Lives 20 minutes from us. His wife's name was Lauren. They had a 3-year-old daughter. I froze when I saw the photos, especially the one with him, his wife, and their little girl wearing matching Halloween costumes. My hands started shaking, and I had to put the phone down because I had a decision to make. I could message her, Lauren. I could destroy their family, too. Blow it all wide open. Deliver to her the same explosion Karina handed me, like a wine glass that shattered in my lap. But I didn't press send. Not yet, because something told me this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Karina hadn't even started telling me the truth. And Reed, he was about to be pulled back into the light because secrets don't stay buried. Not when someone finally starts digging. I didn't contact Lauren right away. I kept her name and face in a folder on my desktop along with that photo I'd printed for Karina. I didn't want to use her like a weapon, but I also didn't know how to pretend like I didn't know. I kept seeing that little girl in a Halloween costume, smiling between two people who had no idea they were standing on a fault line, ready to split. Days passed. Karina showed up at my work. I was in the break room microwaving leftover lasagna that didn't even taste like food anymore when I looked up and saw her reflection in the glass. She had that look on her face, the don't freak out, just hear me out expression. And like a fool, I followed her outside. We stood in the parking lot, surrounded by car alarms and the smell of stale coffee. She started to speak, but I stopped her with a single word. Reed. Her eyes went glassy. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. His wife's name is Lauren, I added. Cute kid. I'm guessing she doesn't know either. Karina covered her mouth like that would stop the truth from pouring out. For a moment, she just stood there, and then she did the thing I didn't expect. She sat down on the curb, shaking. I didn't mean for it to become anything, she whispered. It was supposed to be a flirt, just something stupid. I was bored, Edwin. I was so bored, and you were always tired, and he made me feel. Don't, I cut in. Don't say alive or seen or any of those excuses people use to make themselves feel better about gutting someone. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes and said the line that stuck in my brain like a splinter. You disappeared from us before I ever did, Edwin. You just didn't notice. That line hurt. It dug in somewhere deep, somewhere tender, because part of me knew it wasn't entirely false. I had become numb, routine, predictable. I didn't write notes anymore, didn't kiss her forehead while she slept, didn't ask how her day was, not really. But the difference was I didn't replace her. I faded because I thought we were safe. She faded because she wanted more. There's a difference between drifting and diving. And she dove headfirst. We didn't argue. We didn't scream. We just sat there, me standing, her hunched on concrete, like two strangers trying to explain a car crash they both walked away from but can't describe. Then she said something else. Lauren knows. I blinked. What? She found out 2 months ago, Karina continued. They were on the rocks even before that. She made him choose and he stayed. She stayed too. I think she's pretending it didn't happen. Something shifted inside me. Not anger, confusion. If Lauren knew, why hadn't she warned me? Why hadn't anyone? She didn't tell you? Karina asked. No, I said. But someone else did. Karina looked at me, confused. Who? I didn't answer. She didn't need to know about April. That night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I drove home, alone. The house was still ours, technically, though she hadn't been living there since I left. The porch light was flickering. A stack of mail sat untouched. And inside, everything was exactly where I'd left it. That was the worst part. No chaos. No broken glass. No overturned furniture. Just stillness. I walked through the rooms like a ghost haunting his own past. In the bedroom, I opened her nightstand. I never used to. That was her drawer. But now nothing was sacred anymore. Inside, I found a necklace I didn't recognize. Delicate gold, inscribed with a name, not mine. I took it and held it in my palm for a long time. It wasn't proof of anything illegal. It wasn't even dramatic. But it felt worse because it was a gift, a quiet one, something you give when you want someone to feel cherished in a way you no longer bother with. Karina had already been someone else's long before I walked out of that party. I put the necklace back, closed the drawer, and walked out. This time I didn't feel hollow. I felt done. But the world wasn't done with me yet, because the next morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Are you Edwin? I'm Lauren. We need to talk." Lauren asked if we could meet somewhere neutral, not too quiet, not too public. We agreed on a park downtown, the kind with coffee carts, duck ponds, and couples that still hold hands like nothing bad could ever happen. I got there first, early enough to have time to consider backing out, but I didn't. I sat on a bench with a half-full coffee I didn't drink and waited until she walked up, wearing sunglasses and a coat too big for the weather. She looked like she'd aged 10 years since the last photo I saw of her. And I wondered if I did, too. "Thanks for coming," she said, and her voice was softer than I expected. I nodded and motioned to the empty space on the bench beside me. She didn't sit right away. She looked at the pond, at a kid throwing bread to ducks, at anything but me. Then finally, "So, Reed and Karina." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "I didn't tell you because I wasn't ready to see someone else fall apart. One broken household is enough," she added. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me was angry. She knew and let me walk around blind. But another part understood. Lauren finally sat down but left space between us like we were strangers in a waiting room. "I found out in February," she said. "He had lipstick on his neck, the wrong shade, and when I checked his phone, there it was. A stupid string of messages. Some of them were from your wife, some from others. I'm not even sure Karina was the only one." My stomach twisted. "So, you stayed?" "I did," she said, folding her hands. "I thought if I could just pretend it away, maybe we could salvage some version of normal for our daughter. But that wasn't what killed me, Edwin. You know what really did?" I shook my head. "It wasn't the infidelity. It was how easy it was for him. How effortless. Like he could compartmentalize a double life while I was burning alive inside mine." I looked down at my hands. I didn't know how to respond. She wasn't here for comfort, and I wasn't here to offer any. Then she reached in her purse and handed me a small black USB drive. I stared at it. "What's this?" "Proof," she said simply. "He used to back things up. Photos, videos, notes. I found this in an old folder he didn't think I'd check. I don't know why I'm giving it to you. Maybe because I've already seen enough. Or maybe because you deserve to know just how long this has been going on." I turned the drive over in my fingers. Felt heavier than it should have. She continued, "I'm not giving you this for revenge. I'm not interested in ruining Reed. He does that fine on his own. I'm giving you this so you stop blaming yourself for a fire someone else lit." I didn't say anything. She stood. "Take care of yourself, Edwin. We don't get to unknow things, but maybe we can learn how to survive them." I watched her walk away without turning back once. I didn't open the USB drive that night. I placed it on the kitchen counter at home like it was a loaded weapon and walked circles around it for hours. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the bathroom, took out trash that wasn't mine, refold towels. None of it helped. That drive was there, glowing in my mind like a cursed artifact. At 2:14 a.m., I plugged it into my laptop. What I found inside broke something I didn't even know I had left. The folder was titled Red. Not Karina. Not fun. Not work. Just Red. Inside were dozens of images. Some of them were mundane. Dinners, drinks, rideshares, blurry nights out. But then there were others. A hotel key on a bedside table. A handwritten note in Karina's writing. Her name on a flight confirmation. Voice memos with Reed whispering things I can't unhear. And then there was one folder that wasn't labeled. Inside, a recording. The file opened on a black screen, just audio. It was her voice. "Karina, he's so easy to lie to. He still buys me flowers every now and then. It's almost cute. But Reed, you know me. You see me. You don't ask permission. He always asks. You just take." My breath caught. Then laughter. Reed's, then hers. "Karina, I think if Edwin ever found out, he'd probably just sit quietly and fold his socks in another room. He's too soft to leave me." And that was it. That line. It felt like someone shoved their hand through my chest and squeezed until there was nothing left but splinters. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But But I closed the laptop slowly, stood up, and walked out into the street barefoot like I was escaping a burning house. I didn't even grab my phone because the truth was, she wasn't wrong. I hadn't left. Not really. Until now. I didn't sleep after hearing her voice in that recording. I lay on the floor with the laptop still open, the black screen casting a faint glow against the ceiling. I kept hearing that laugh. Hers so casual, so careless. She could have been talking about a stranger. Not the man who stood beside her through job layoffs, the miscarriage, her father's funeral. Me. The man folding his socks in the next room while she burned our life down. That morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't call in either. I think deep down I wanted them to fire me, to end something before I had to. I made toast, burned it, stared at the toaster like it had betrayed me, too. Then I walked out the front door. Didn't lock it. Didn't even bring a jacket. Just kept walking. The streets were loud with spring air, dogs barking, kids running towards school buses. Everyone else's world was moving forward. Mine had stopped 3 weeks ago. I didn't want to be dramatic. I wasn't thinking of doing anything stupid. I just wanted to disappear a little, be anonymous. I ended up at a bookstore cafe I hadn't visited in years. Ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, and watched the street. I must have looked pathetic. I think I felt pathetic. And yet, there was a strange sort of calm in admitting that I had officially hit bottom. There was nothing left to defend. No more illusions to maintain. I wasn't a husband anymore. I wasn't even a man who had been cheated on. I was just a man who'd been erased by the person he trusted most. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Karina again. I didn't check the message, but the preview said enough. Please just come over one last time. No yelling, no lies. I want to tell you everything. Part of me wanted to throw the phone into the street. Another part wanted to delete her number and pretend none of this had happened. But the quietest part, the one I'd ignored for too long, whispered something else. Go. Not for her. For you. So I did. She opened the door like she was expecting a package, not a man whose world she had leveled. She wore no makeup, hair tied up, eyes puffy. Her voice was barely audible. Thank you for coming. I stepped inside. Nothing in the house had changed, and that was worse. The same candle still sat melted on the table. The same photo of us smiling in Vermont. The same faint lavender smell she used to call our scent. It all felt so stupid now. She led me to the couch and sat across from me, not beside me. I noticed a yellow legal pad on the coffee table covered in her handwriting. My name was at the top underlined. I wrote it all down, she said. Everything, so I wouldn't twist it or leave anything out. I raised an eyebrow. You wrote a confession. She gave a tired smile. A timeline more like dates, names, feelings. I didn't touch the notepad, just stared at her. She spoke softly. The first time it happened wasn't with Reed. It was 1.5 years ago. His name was Nate. He was married, too. I blinked. I ended it after 2 weeks. Told myself it was a mistake. You were working all the time. I was lonely. That's how I justified it. But the thing is, once you cross that line and nothing explodes, it gets easier. You start convincing yourself you deserve it, that no one's really getting hurt if it stays secret. She paused. I didn't say a word. Then came Reed, she continued. It was different with him. He wanted things, promised things. I started believing there was another version of my life waiting. One that didn't feel so stuck. Why didn't you just leave me? I asked finally, and my voice cracked in the middle. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes welled, but she held the tears back like they were guilty. Because I didn't want to be the villain. I wanted to be chosen. The words dropped between us like a knife. You wanted him to leave her first, I said slowly. She nodded. And when he didn't, you just kept both worlds going. Another nod. I stood up, not because I was angry, but because I couldn't physically sit there anymore. I don't need the timeline, I said. I don't need your explanations or your closure. You already gave me everything I needed. What does that mean? I turned to the door. It means you finally made it easy to walk away. She started crying. really crying this time. Ugly, broken sobs that filled the room. But I didn't stay. I didn't hold her. Didn't reach for the notepad. Didn't even close the door gently. I walked out of that house not as her husband, not as the man she once loved, but as someone I'd nearly forgotten how to be, myself. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt done. But the world wasn't quite done with me yet, because a day later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was one sentence. You have no idea what Reed is hiding. I stared at the letter in my hands for a long time. Just one sentence, scrawled in uneven handwriting. You have no idea what Reed is hiding. There was no signature, no return address, no clue where it came from. Just that one line, like a whisper slid under the door of a quiet life I was trying to walk away from. For a second, I considered ignoring it. I was tired of secrets, tired of being dragged deeper into a world I never asked to be part of. But something about the wording, "You have no idea," stuck with me. It didn't feel like a threat, felt like a warning. And I wasn't curious for revenge anymore. I was curious for peace. And sometimes peace means knowing everything. So I called April. She didn't answer at first, but later that evening, she called me back. Her voice was tight, cautious. "I was hoping you'd move on," she said. "Then why send the letter?" "I didn't. But I think I know who did." She told me there was another woman, not Reed's wife, someone else. A third person, years back, someone who had filed an internal HR report at their company that mysteriously disappeared. April didn't know the full details, but she heard rumors that Reed had gotten aggressive when she tried to break things off. Management swept it under the rug. Big client involved. No scandal allowed. That woman's name was Julia, and she'd been missing from work ever since. No one asked. No one pressed. They all just moved on. But April never forgot. I didn't know what to do with that information. I couldn't prove anything. I wasn't a cop. I didn't even know Julia. But something clicked inside me. This wasn't about Karina anymore, or even me. It was about how far people can fall when no one's watching and how many others get pulled down with them. That night, I wrote a long letter to Lauren. I told her what I'd learned. I didn't accuse. I didn't speculate. I just passed along what April told me and told her she deserved to know. I ended it with a single line. "You're not crazy. You're not alone." I never heard back. And that's okay, because it wasn't about getting closure from others anymore. It was about giving it to myself. It's been 5 months since that final meeting with Karina. The divorce papers are signed, quietly, without drama. She moved in with a friend across town. We don't speak. There's nothing left to say. But me, I moved into a small apartment above a used bookstore. It's got crooked floors and a kettle that whistles too loud. But it's mine. I repainted the walls, bought secondhand furniture, and started cooking again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to taste my own life. And last week, I met someone, not in some grand movie-style way, just at the counter of the bookstore. Both of us reaching for the same worn copy of East of Eden. Her name's Clara. She smiled in that way people do when they're not trying too hard. We talked for 20 minutes, then an hour, then coffee. I told her I was divorced. I didn't tell her everything, but I was honest. She didn't run. She just nodded and said, "Then you've probably figured out who you don't want to be." That's a start. It was. The other night, I stood in my little kitchen stirring pasta, and I realized something. The silence, the one that haunted me after the party, doesn't scare me anymore. It's not empty now. It's peaceful. It's mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, I feel